All right, everybody. So, have you heard about this whole pallet flipping thing? It's like the whole treasure hunt aspect is kind of calling me. I gotta admit, but is it legit? Like, can you really make money doing this, or is it just hype?
Well, that's what we're diving into today, right?
Exactly. Today, we're going to unpack the world of pallet flipping, see if we can separate, the actual gems from the junk.
Like separating the valuable returns
Uh-huh.
from the, well, actual returns.
Aha, exactly. And to guide us on this journey, we've got our hands on a really interesting guide that seems to lay it all out. And they really focus on this company called the Bin Store as a potential pallet source.
Yeah, the bin store is interesting because they're all about liquidations from big retailers.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a much wider variety of stuff compared to like your average auction or
Well,
something.
that's a good point. Variety is key when it comes to reselling, right? Okay,
Yeah.
but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up a bit for anyone who's like, pallet what? What is pallet flipping in the first place, and how does this whole thing actually work?
It's kind of like, those giant grab bags you see. But instead of candy, it's a pallet piled high with stuff that could be worth some serious cash.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, so these pallets are often full of returns, overstock, maybe some slightly damaged goods, all from retailers.
Makes sense.
And the whole idea is you snag these pallets for a steal, sort through everything, and then resell the individual goodies for a profit.
So it's like a giant retail rescue mission. You're saving these perfectly good items from a landfill fate and lining your pockets in the process.
Yeah, you could say that, though the lining your pockets part does depend on picking the right pallets and knowing what to do with them.
Right. Which brings us back to the guide. This guide really emphasizes the work part of side hustle. They say success in pallet flipping boils down to three things: research, market knowledge, and of course, a little elbow grease.
Can't forget the elbow grease.
Absolutely not. Okay, so let's break those down. What kind of research are we talking about here? I'm guessing it's not just like browsing eBay for hours on end.
Well, browsing eBay can be helpful, but this is where you got to become a bit of a detective in your own backyard.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, the guide suggests some cool research methods like hitting up local classifieds, going to flea markets to see what's hot, even checking out those online groups dedicated to buying and selling used stuff in your area.
So, like, if I'm living in a college town, I might have more luck with dorm-friendly furniture or gadgets. But if I'm in a suburb with tons of families, maybe toys or baby gear are the way to go.
Exactly. The guide really hammers home that understanding your local demand is make or break when it comes to choosing pallets.
Makes sense. You don't want to end up with a pallet full of snow boots if you're in Florida.
Precisely. It's all about knowing your market.
Okay, so you've done your research, you found your niche, you're ready to score some pallets, and this is where the bin store comes in, right? The guide really focuses on them as a potential source.
They do, yeah. The bin store is based in Augusta, Georgia, and they seem to offer both individual pallets
Hmm.
and bulk buying options.
Bulk buying. Okay, so we're talking serious business here.
Yeah, that's definitely more for seasoned flippers or those looking to really scale up their operation. The guide actually advises against going the bulk route right off the bat.
Probably good call. Less risk that way when you're first starting out.
Exactly. Plus, with bulk buying comes the need for more storage space, more hands to help you sort through everything.
Mm.
It just gets a lot more complex.
Right, so maybe start small, get a feel for the process, and then if it makes sense for your goals, consider leveling up to the big leagues.
And the bin store, despite being in Georgia, does have an online presence.
So you could theoretically browse their inventory or even buy pallets remotely. That's pretty cool for anyone who's not exactly next door to Georgia. For our listeners who are already packing their bags, though, where can they find the bin store online?
They've got a website and they're on social media. The guide mentions both,
Right.
so that's a good starting point. You can probably find more info there, pricing, maybe even sneak peeks at their current pallet offerings.
Ooh, very nice. All right, so you've sourced your pallet, you've lugged it back to your secret lair, which I'm picturing as this gloriously chaotic warehouse, overflowing with hidden treasures. What's next?
This is where the real treasure hunt begins, my friend. Inspection and sorting. So you've got this pallet sitting in your driveway, probably feeling pretty pumped, right?
Oh, yeah. Ready to unleash my inner unboxing influencer.
Uh-huh, I hear you. But here's the thing. The guide says don't just go at it like a kid in a candy store.
Okay, so less sugar rush, more strategy.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You're a treasure hunter on the hunt for those telltale signs of value.
I can get behind that. So what am I looking for first?
First things first, you got to check the condition of each item. Is it brand spanking new in the box? Gently used. Or maybe it needs a little TLC. The guide makes it clear items in pristine packaging. That's your gold mine right there.
Makes sense. People love that fresh out of the box feeling, even if it's technically from a pallet.
Yeah.
What about those items that are a little worse for wear? Are those a lost cause?
Not necessarily. The guide says get creative. Could you salvage parts for resale? Maybe repurpose them into something completely different. Upcycling is a thing.
True. One person's trash is another person's DIY project, right?
Exactly. Though, if something's truly beyond saving factor in those disposal costs, you got to make sure you're still turning a profit after all.
Ah, such a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and forget about the not so glamorous stuff like disposal fees and shipping costs.
Speaking of shipping, that's a biggie when it comes to reselling. The guide talks about two main avenues: local selling and online marketplaces, each with its own pros and cons.
Okay, so for those of us who love a good old-fashioned flea market, what's so great about going local?
Where you get that face-to-face interaction. You can answer questions, maybe do a little
Well,
haggling.
yeah, gotta love a good haggle. But what about reaching more people? Isn't that where online marketplaces really shine?
Absolutely. Online gives you a much wider net. You can be connecting with buyers across the country or even internationally. The guide mentions eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Those are some big players.
Yeah, those are the classics.
Yeah.
But I bet there are some more niche platforms out there too, depending on what you're selling.
Oh, for sure. The guide encourages exploring those niche sites,
Mhm.
especially if you're into things like vintage clothing, antiques, electronics, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of social media.
Okay, now we're talking. How can pallet flippers use social media to their advantage? Give me the inside scoop.
It's all about showcasing your finds in the best possible light. High-quality photos, catchy descriptions, and, of course, those magical hashtags.
Hashtag's the key to unlocking online visibility.
Exactly. You got to think of them as little signposts guiding the right buyers to your treasures.
Hmm.
And speaking of the bin store, they seem to have that whole social media game down packed.
Oh, really? How so?
The guide mentions that they use social media to connect with potential buyers, which I think just highlights this bigger point they make about continuous learning and always adapting. The world of pallet flipping is constantly changing, new trends, new platforms, new challenges.
So you gotta stay nimble. Always be ready to pivot.
Precisely. The most successful flippers are the ones who embrace change. Stay curious, always looking for ways to up their game.
It's like they say, evolve or get left on the pallet.
That's a good one. And you know what else can really level up your game? Networking.
Ah, yes, the power of connecting with your fellow treasure hunters. The guide touches on that too, right?
They say networking with other flippers can be a game changer. Whether it's online or in person, doesn't matter.
Because two heads are better than one when it comes to spotting a diamond in the rough.
Totally. It's like you're all part of this secret society united by your love of a good bargain.
And there's shared war stories. You gotta have someone who gets what it's like to score a pallet full of vintage video games or, accidentally buy a box of broken toasters. Haha. Oh man, those accidental purchases, gotta love them. But hey, that's all part of the learning process, right? Speaking of learning, the guide doesn't sugarcoat things when it comes to the financial side of pallet flipping. They really emphasize treating this like a business,
Yeah, they're big on that whole keep track of your numbers thing.
which makes sense if you want to actually make a profit. So we're talking spreadsheets, expense reports, the whole 9 yards.
Pretty much. The guide says track everything, not just what you're spending on pallets, but transportation, cleaning supplies, online, selling fees, even your time.
Because time is money, right?
Exactly. It's easy to forget that when you're caught up in the thrill of the hunt, but those hours spent sorting listing items, it all adds up.
That's where a good spreadsheet comes in handy.
Totally. Or, one of those budgeting apps.
Yeah.
Whatever helps you stay organized and see where your money's actually going.
Smart money moves. It's not just about making money, it's about making it last.
Now you're getting it. And what's cool? The guide goes beyond the whole how-to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It hints at something bigger. Something
Yeah.
kind of inspiring, actually.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's this bigger picture idea?
It's like this whole concept of giving things a second chance. Rescuing those perfectly good items from ending up in a landfill.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to this growing movement of sustainability, being more mindful about what we buy and use.
Oh, totally. It's like accidental environmentalism.
Yeah.
You're doing good for the planet and your wallet at the same time.
Exactly. And that adds this whole other layer of satisfaction to the whole pallet flipping experience.
Love it. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of pallets, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
Pallet flipping. It's more than just a side hustle. It's a chance to tap into that entrepreneurial spirit, to embrace the unknown, maybe even change the way we think about consumption and reuse.
Beautifully said. So if you're ready to roll up your sleeves, put in the work, maybe uncover a hidden talent for turning trash into treasure, pallet flipping might be right up your alley.
It's an adventure for sure.
And with that, we'll wrap things up. Big thanks to our expert for sharing their insights, and of course to all of you for tuning in. If you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we want to hear from you. Share your pallet slipping stories, the good, the bad, the hilariously unexpected. Until next time, happy hunting, everybody.